go. All right. Hey, everyone. How's it going? Say hi to everybody who's here. Everyone's here. All right, great. Everybody's coming in. Thanks so much for being here as usual. Show number 51 of the Brooklyn broadcast. Phil Mingen, as always, doing the great moderation. So all my courses are 20% off through my website, all my True Fire courses. And this tune, since I've been loving you basically, is on one of my True Fire courses. It's on my blues rock grooves, 1 and 2, or number 2, I believe. Anyway, I've seemed to have forgotten which one it is. So, it's on one of those courses there. And thank you so much, everyone who's picked up the latest pentatonic course. I'm really psyched about that. And, all right, so let's just talk about what's going on here. Playing, basically, Since I've Been Loving You by Zeppelin off of Zeppelin 3, one of my favorite Zeppelin songs. It's pretty fun. I was reading up on it just before we went online. And some of the reviews of Zeppelin 3 were always really terrible, which is hysterical because I think it's such a great record. And as we know, probably, Zeppelin was never really well received by critics. And they called the song like something like a dirge, a endless slow minor blues dirge or something like that. Completely out of another planet for me because I'm really just so crazy about the band and everything like that. All right, so what's so cool about this tune and what Paige did, it's a regular 12-bar blues, and it's a C minor blues. So if we just look, Phil's got a link. It's also in the link there. I've got a chart, and the chart is, some of the fills that you watch is actually from one of my courses where I talk about doing fills over this tune. But you can follow along. The chord changes are there, and there's the background track for you. That's from my course as well, my True Fire course. So 12-bar blues, so our regular changes would be C minor, turn off the univibe, to F minor. All right, back down to C minor. And then my 5 chord would be G minor to the 4 chord, which is the F minor, back to the C minor. Right? So we're in C minor. And what's cool about this tune is what makes it so nice is that Paige actually, made a bunch of changes to the chord progressions. So as he's online, Jason Lachlan, I called him up to make sure I was, he's always my theoretical advisor as well, so he helped me with there's one chord, and we'll talk about it, because what really is going on are some common substitutions that you can use in a blues. So did Paige come up with these? I don't really think so, because they are very common. You hear more in jazz, and Paige definitely knew what he was doing. He's definitely a well-educated musician from all the sessions and things. So let's just talk about the changes. So it's a 12/8. So that means we have each bar has 4 groups of triplets. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So when anybody says, let's play a 12/8 blues, it means a slow blues with this feel. Boom, got 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So if you even listen, let me just kind of talk about that for just a sec. If you listen to the hi-hat, listen. Well, 4, 5, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's a 12/8 feel. Right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So there you go. 12/8. That's what it means. Almost always, if you're playing a 12/8 blues, always it's going to be a slow blues, because you're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So it's like a waltz. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. But it's too slow for a waltz. So a faster feel would be, a 6/8 waltz or a 12 or a 3/4 waltz. Okay, so our 1 chord, C minor, F minor, right? So it's still 1 to 4 and 1. And here comes our 4 where it would normally be. Right? And then back to the 1. C minor. And then our 5 is going to be the G minor as normally. Now here we're going to go to A flat major. Then we go down to F minor. Okay, let's talk about, I'll go through the changes first. Then we do E flat major or E flat 7. But definitely here in E flat major first. To G7 with D in the bass. We'll talk about that in a second. Then to C minor. E flat 7. D7. D flat major 7. Back down to C minor. Okay, all this makes some sense. Let's talk about, we're going from our 5 chords. So everything right off the top is a regular old 12-bar blues, right? We go to the 5 chord, G minor. And then we're supposed to go down to the 4 chord, right? But what Page does is he goes up to A flat major. Now, a little out of tune right there. He goes to the A flat major. Now, A flat, if we know anything about music theory a little bit, is A flat major is the relative major chord of F minor. So if you look right there, there's an A flat major chord, A flat, C, E flat. And if you look at F, say F minor 7, that's F, A flat, C, E flat. So A flat major, it's the same chord in, for all intents and purposes, different bass note. Then, now if you look at an F sharp minor, it's an A flat major chord with an F in the bass, right? So in a musical kind of context, in the way Page is treating this, and musicians all around the world, jazz musicians especially, you're replacing or substituting or adding to or coloring your 1 minor chord, this F minor chord or the 4 minor chord, with its relative major, its related major chord. So it just gives it more motion, right? It gives it a cooler sound, so you're not just going, so. Right? He's going 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 10, 11. So we broke up the measure in 2. So we took, instead of playing 4 beats or the 4 beats of the F minor, he breaks it up and he plays 2 beats of the A flat major to 2 beats of the F minor. Okay, so very simple musical theory thing where you're going to substitute or replace or embellish a minor chord with its related major chord. So how do you figure that out on a gig? How are you going to do that? The old 3 fret trick, right? So here's my 1 chord. Go up 3 frets, and there's your relative major. A flat, F minor. Okay, now he goes to E flat major. I like this voicing. To G7. Oops, sorry. Being an idiot today. G7 to C minor. So the main thing, the reason why he's doing this, because we want to get that. Right, get that bass line, right? That moving bass line going down. Right, that kind of thing right there. So we're playing E flat major. Now, it's a, let's take a look at that. We're in a key of C minor, right? What did we just talk about? Well, what is E flat? E flat major is the relative major of C minor. So he did the same kind of idea twice. So instead of playing the C minor, he plays E flat major. So if you listen to C minor 7 is like a E flat minor chord, or E flat major chord, excuse me, with a C in the bass. So they're both related E flat major is E flat, G, B flat. C minor 7 is C, E, G flat, B flat. So the same notes, so you're just going to change that little bass line. So once again, so if I did the 5, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3. I could have gone, but he went. Okay, so everybody with me so far? E flat major is the relative major of the C minor chord, so he's delaying the C minor sound by using the E flat major chord. And once again, the theoretical idea is I am just going to replace one of my chords with its relative major. So I put C major, he replaces it with E flat minor. We're not going to talk about this today, but we can also, is you can do the same thing in the opposite. You can replace a major chord with its relative minor chord, and songs do that all the time. Okay, so we do this. Then he goes to a G7 with a D in the bass, but it's G7. Okay, so what's the G7? Another little kind of cool jazzy trick that I'm sure he encountered at some point in his career, and like I said, he's a well-educated musician. You can almost always add in a 5 chord of your 1 chord. Very common in jazz. Like a 2, 5, 1. So instead of going in jazz, they might go 1, 2, 5, 1. So what Page did was he went the E flat, which is the major, flat 3 major chord, which is the same as the 1 minor, going to the 5 of the 1 C minor. So he went like, okay. Then he goes to E flat major again, then D7. There's a bunch of ways we can look at that. It's a secondary dominant of my 5 chord. Another kind of jazzy thing. So then he does, right? Right, then this, sorry, D flat major 7. So I got a little lost for a second. E flat major, down to the D7, then to D flat major 7. It's the next chord, back down to the 1 minor. And this is where Jason helped me. What we're hearing is this D flat major 7 chord is what we call a tritone substitute of our 5 chord. But I'm used to hearing tritone substitutes as dominant 7th chords. So, but in a minor key, Jason reminded me that it's a major 7 chord. Back to the 1. So it's going to do like so 3, right? Then we go to this. It's D major 7. I'll show you that fingering in a second. All right, so it's generally, like I said, a minor blues, but with these kind of cool changes. So he does this. If you just take a look, right? I'm going to go to D7. There's E flat major. D7, just these 3 notes. Then he does pretty sweet. So there's something called voice leading going on there. And he goes. So if you look at this note moving down, we're going to have this G from our E flat major chord, or E7 chord, E flat 7. That goes down a half step. The other ones we'll too in a second. Then, so we get this great resolution of right? Okay, so E flat, D7, D flat major 7, C minor. It was really awesome. So, all right, I'm just going to run through the chords one more time, just kind of call them out. So we have our 1, right? We go to our 4 minor. 1 minor again, right? And then back to the 4 minor. Actually, let me just play it with the track so we can play it and I'll call it the chords. All right. So, C minor on the top. 4 F minor. You by back on, sounds cool. Back to C minor, the 1. My 4 chord F minor. Back to C minor, here's my 1. I'm giving the name, this is my 1 chord, right? Now we're gonna go to the 5, which is G minor. Flat 6 major, A flat. Down to the 4 F minor. E flat major, 1 major, flat 3 major. Yeah, sorry. Messed it up. Hard to say it, hard to say it and play at the same time. Okay, sorry. E flat major. There's the G7 to the 1 C minor, right? Then back to the E flat major again. Then D7, D flat major 7, and back to the C minor. Okay, I'm gonna play it again and not call out the chords because I'm being an idiot. All right, you can follow along. C minor. And G minor, A flat, F minor, E flat, G7, G7, C, E flat, D7, E flat major 7. Okay, back to there. 1. All right, so once again, we're adding in a few substitutions. The most common one we come across twice in the song is we're going to replace our minor chord with its related major chord. So once again, we count up a minor third, 1 1/2 steps. So our A flat major is basically our F minor chord. So remember again, F minor 7 is an A flat major chord, but with an F in the bass. That's one way to look at it. That was one of the first times I discovered that. Like, you know, that kind of A, F sharp minor, A. So it's the same kind of move. So we've got F sharp, A flat major, F minor. Now the E flat major, once again, is a substitution for the C minor because it's his relative major chord. Down to the D7. Oh, sorry. E flat major, I'm going to keep on to the second half. To G7, which is the 5 of the 1 chord. Right, then back to that E flat major. D7. Now we have our tritone substitute for the 5 chord with a D flat major 7 chord. He does that cool little voice leading because he's moving this. He does E flat 7 sometimes. D flat 7, or is it D7? One more time, guys, it's live. E flat 7 to D7. And then I'm going to move this down to D flat major 7 to the C minor. Now we talked a little bit about that voice leading. Right? And if we look at our bass line, sweet. Pretty cool. Same thing in this other part where that, you know, right? Now in the song he does this like, to me he's just running off of the C minor scale. cool little riff, right? Then we do this cool thing, well, he does. All right, so that, well, he's got his E flat 7 chord, but he actually throws in that cool 6. So we have E flat and C. So he's treating it as a C minor chord at this point. Back to our D7, or to our G7 chord, right? So we have, and that's going to give us, you hear that? So we have E flat and C, which is part of our C minor chord, or we can see it as sort of like an E flat minor 6 sound. And there's a little theory going on. It's C minor, really. And then he moves it down to the D and the B, which is our G chord, right? So that part of the song does that. So he just plays those chords. Then he does. So freaking awesome. He's the best. Still gives me chills, man. He's so good. So there, we're getting the E flat, right? To the D7. So E flat is spelled E flat, G, B flat. There's my B flat, there's my G. It's 2 notes of the E flat chord. Slides it down a half step. D7 is the chord. D7 is spelled D, F sharp, A, and C. There we have our A and our F sharp. So then there's that major 7. He does a little bend. Right? So then, all right. Woo! So that is the changes to Since I've Been Loving You. And once again, you have the PDF. There's a bunch of fills in the PDF, and that's from one of my TrueFire courses, which are all 20% off on my website. I've included the track because I love you guys. It's in the Dropbox link. I just wanted to, for years, I didn't know. I just looked at Since I've Been Loving You as being Since I've Been Loving You, and Jimmy Page came up with these chord changes. And is that the case that he came up with them? Yeah, I think he reinvented them in his own way. But some of these are very standard blues or jazz, more jazz substitutions for chords. So one thing that I think is pretty cool to notice, we have a 1, 6, 2, 5, 1. We've heard those, and say a major is like, right? We heard that in a blues like, right? Or now in a minor, we'd have a we'd have a 1, 6, 2, 5, and C minor would be C minor, A minor 7 flat 5, right? That because we're having the same note. Then we would have D minor 7 flat 5 to, if you want to get fancy, G7 flat 9 flat 13, right? Or just in simple C minor, A minor, A diminished. And we have that D minor 7 flat 5 or D diminished. We could do, it sounds better this 2-5. There's a few little things going on here that I don't want to get too deeply theoretically into at the moment. But so it's a minor 2-5-1, 1, 6, 2, 5, 1, C minor, A flat minor 7, A minor 7 flat 5, D minor 7 flat 5 to G7, back to C minor. So what Page is really doing is doing tritone subs of that. So check it out. So I can think of this as like when he does this, could be E flat could be a tritone substitute of my A flat. He's doing, so instead of this, he's doing, here that sounds pretty common, right? It's pretty similar. A minor 7 flat 5. Well, look at that. There's a little C minor chord. You put an E in the bass of that. It's the E minor 6 chord. Then we're going to go to this D minor 7 flat 5. Well, he just kind of replaces that with D7 because it sounds cool. Very common in jazz. Because then we go to that D major 7 chord D flat major 7, which is a tritone substitute for the G7 chord. So what I'm getting at here is he just recreated a 1-6-2-5. So instead of going, right? Pretty common. He went. Yeah, he did 7 there, excuse me. Right, so it all makes sense once you kind of know what's going on. And I think it's really important. Like I said, for me, when I first got into this tune, I just, you guys probably know me at this point. Jimmy Page and Zeppelin is my favorite band of all time. Jimmy Page, I find to be just an absolute, just a genius. I mean, there's nobody like him. Producer, guitar player, freaking rock star, everything. And some people say like, oh, Jimmy's a little sloppy. Whatever, who cares? The ideas were just so crazy and how we put that band together. Now, the band was the sum of the parts, for sure. But he was the driving force and the producer of all these songs. And so these changes are not just something I'm not even to diminish what he's saying. In fact, it makes me think even more of him if that's possible. He absorbed all this stuff from probably jazz tunes and like Jason and I were talking about earlier, maybe like from sessions that he had done because he was a session musician. He'd see some of these changes, go, oh, that's pretty cool. And he put it together in just one of the coolest set of chord changes on a blues that I've encountered in one of my favorite Zeppelin songs of all time. So there you go. All right, so let's see if we have any questions on this. That's a lot, and then we'll talk about all sorts of other stuff. Woo! Okay, a whole half hour on talking about it. So, I just saw my eye pops to Autumn Leaves. Yeah, so that was Ken Key's just Autumn Leaves. Yeah, these are all just, this is all just jazz stuff. Yeah, just jazz stuff, really, All right, so let me go up to the top. Let me say hi to everyone. And Phil Mingan, of course, Richard and Sarah. Hey, what's up? Jason Lachlan, I know you're here, thank God. Tom. Ken Keys, Sean MacArthur, Neil Donovan, S.C. Nesbitt, Brad, Dr. Brad, Stan, Vendor Guru, Bill Spruce. What's up, Bruce? I got your email. I got to get back to you. My apologies, man. Matt Gibson, Steve Adams, yeah, Graham Ross. Okay, John, Mark, everybody. All right, cool. Forgive me if I don't call everybody out. I appreciate everyone here. And I appreciate all the support you guys have given me. I do have the tip jar if you want to help out over at my PayPal or Venmo. It helps to keep doing these things. And of course, the biggest way, that's the direct way, and the TrueFire courses if you like that. And that's the direct way that you can support me and any TrueFire artist is if you get their TrueFire courses through their website, not TrueFire's website, our website. So they're all 20% off if you enter live 20. I know Phil's working this, but okay. So Michael Cope, what's up? All right, so I'm going down the bottom for questions. Are you just using, okay, so S.C. Nesbitt, are you using 3 notes for that D flat major 7? Yeah, I'm just copying exactly what Page played. So I could play a full D major 7 chord, E flat 7 to D7. A full D flat major 7 chord is just fine. But what Page played was nice. You kind of have this really cool voice leading that goes down, getting the chords voicings, right? So E flat 7, D flat 7. There we go. And there's a D flat major 7, there's the D, there's the F, and there's a C. So the root, the 3, and the natural 7. Right? There we go. So that's really cool. All right. Get into the questions that Phil has so helpfully highlighted. Okay, Jason Carter asked, Jimmy Page uses Ernie Ball 9-gauge strings. How important is the exact to get his tone and sound he has? Oh, I don't know. I think the biggest part of his, it's all in everybody's hands, really. You know what I mean? That's where the tone's coming from. I don't know. I mean, I use tens, whatever works for you. I don't think, I don't know. And I like some of the later stuff, like the O2 Arena, they're tuned down like a whole step. So I don't even know if he's using a heavier gauge. I didn't investigate so much what he's using in terms of that sense. I know he's got the Les Paul with all the push-pull pots and all that kind of stuff too. But all right. So, but yeah, that's the voicing I'm using. So. Sean MacArthur, check your junk for lesson info. Okay, yeah, I'm sorry. All right, great. Yeah, I should do that. Every once in a while, if you send email to me about doing lessons, which I really appreciate, and I do offer private lessons online, I'll check my spam. Sometimes they get thrown in there, so I will definitely check that. Thank you. People want to know what course this is from. Hold on. I can look that up right now. It's on my Blues Rock Essentials Blues Rock Grooves Volume 2. Just double check. It's called Lovin' You. I'm sorry, I should know that, but I don't want to spend the time online trying to type it in. I should know that, but I've done so many courses I can't remember. Okay. Yeah. Okay. CD Baby is no longer selling course CDs, right? And somebody's contacted me about that. I can email ones directly in the United States. Out of the country, it's so cost prohibitive. It's crazy. I have to fill out all these forms, wait at the post office, and then it's like $20 to send a freaking CD out of the country. So I can do something local. Groove Volume 1. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thanks. All right. Okay. Let's just talk a little bit about some of the voicings. Now, in the course in Blues Rock Grooves, I do like like these kind of feels. Then, say when you go to that G minor, you can do all sorts of my A flat major. That's not A flat, sorry. So this is really important. So even though I just screwed it up online, which is great. So there's my G minor, A flat major, then E flat. I could play E flat major, E flat 7, right? The D. And you can really think about these other ways of playing the voicing. So I could have that. Here's my G major, C minor, right? So looking at the inner voicings, and that's what I talk about in that particular course, throwing in some of these fills and seeing how you can do them on top of each other like that. I'd highly recommend learning what Page plays, like, because, if you ever play that song, you need that. But you also, when you're playing that song, you need a really good singer. That's one of those ones, like, I've played on a gig with a female singer who's just great. You know how it is when you play a really kind of a song that's fully ingrained in people's memories. You got to be careful, especially if the singer is like Zeppelin, is very good. So they need to be good too to sing that high. Okay, so I think Phil was telling me that he saw Zeppelin. He might have mentioned this, but he saw them live. I never did. Okay. All right, so just gear-wise, just because we all like to know about that at times, I am using my 1972 Marshall Super Lead, because, you got to stay, though I believe Page was using a super bass. And on the floor, I was using little Univibe. On the live, he would sometimes use the phase shifter, right? Because the phase shifter the Univibe gives that really cool envelope on the notes. All right, any questions on this? That's pretty kind of deep theoretically what's going on, right, guys? So, I mean, for you guys who are just tuning in, there's a lot of people here. Thank you so much for everyone chiming in, joining. There's a lot going on in the changes, and just to bring it back to the top, just to beat it into the ground. two things that really jump out at me that are really cool to think about when you're playing a regular blues is substituting the minor chord, the minor blues, the 1 chord of the 4 chord with its related major chord. All right, so once again, we went to that 4 chord. When it goes to the 5, and we want to hear it go. So Page kind of delays that resolution, or adds in to A flat. Those 2 chords are the essentially same chords, right? And then the same with the E flat. It is also a C minor 6, right? 5 of the 1, flat, there's that flat 3 again, then the D7, D flat major 7. Okay, and once again, as I said, you really want to spend your time working out here, 1 chord, 1 F minor, right, back down. We have our G minor, which you can grab here, A flat, right? Then we went to, right, then the A flat back to the F minor. We have our E flat to D7. Well, how can I play a D7 here? I could play just D major. Yeah, that's kind of cool. Or G7, sorry, that was a D7. Here's my G major, back to the C minor. E flat. Then my D7. Oop. Then you can have tons of fun working these chords out. Yeah, I'm gonna do it. Working out little voicings of them. So, obviously I didn't fully work that out in live and was like, oh, I messed up, damn. All right, so working out these voicings. Now, the fun thing too when you're soloing over this tune, I don't want to get into the soloing because that's another whole episode, which would be fun, is C minor pentatonic works over the whole thing, really, you know. Just want to play that, you know. But, as I talk about many times in my chord tone soloing courses, you're going to miss a bunch of those changes, some of those really great opportunities as they go by. So learning the chords on top of each other really helps. Just the one I'll talk about real fast, because like I said, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but he does it himself. I think in C minor, like, then. Just goes from the F minor chord. He hits the flat 3 of the F minor chord, that A flat to the C minor. So it's important to think about those changes as they go by, and he does for sure, and it makes it so much cooler when you're playing over the song if you make those changes. All right, so let's see. Oh, there's no questions. I've just kind of killed you with theories. Everybody's head kind of exploded as to why this song works. Any other general questions? All right. Okay, well, this is a perfect example to talk about once again. If you saw my Les Paul video, not on Les Paul, my actual playing a Les Paul, I've done the same thing as I always do, setting up the amp. So here's the Marshall. You guys can see it. There we go. It's behind me. And I have it pretty cranked. I'm going into the aux. And there's my bridge pickup. And on my neck, I dial it in. Right, so I can get that kind of nice. Yeah. Right, that kind of cool rounder sound. But when I go to the bridge, a little bitey. So what I did was I rolled off my tone. So. Right, so we started kind of matched them up as I discussed, and I clean up my amp, my guitar sound, and I was doing that the whole time just with my volume knobs. Right? So it's really great kind of clean sound. Right, and I clean up the amp by rolling down the volume. Get a C major minor 7 chord. Okay, there we go. And hey, Keith, 5-watt world. What's up, man? Is all that drive coming from the amp via the aux? Yes. If you know anything about Marshalls, guys, let me just kind of run through what I got going on. You know, everything is a little different when you're running it through something like the aux because it's not a real cabinet, so you just have to sometimes dial in your amplifier for the moment. So I have a master volume put on this thing because, you know, I gotta live. It's so loud. I have the master volume. It's almost full open, the amp, and I have volume number 1 at about 7. Or you know, if you want to look, about 7 on the knobs, or if you want to look at it as about 130, you know, and then the bass channel is it's about 9 o'clock, 9:30, and then trebles in the middle, mids in the middle, bass is rolled off of here from the middle, so probably about 10 o'clock, and the trebles at about 1 o'clock. The thing about the 2-channel Marshalls is you dial in the low end to match out the high end, you know. So when you look at old videos, when you watch videos of Van Halen, he just usually went into channel 1, which is the brighter, you know, really aggressive side. And if you look at someone like Clapton, he actually went into the darker side. And I'll do a whole video on this stuff. He went into the darker side. He went to the dark side. He went into the darker channel, and then he would turn up some of the treble on the controls. So that's really kind of a cool thing. So that's what I'm doing. A super bass is basically a very simple difference between a super bass and a super lead in Marshalls. It's basically a capacitor, if I'm not mistaken, and maybe a little bit how they run the tubes. It's a very simple modification. Super leads just break up faster and they get a little more aggressive. Super basses are less distorted. And if you listen to Page play, he was played really clean. I mean, it was just on the edge of breaking up. That was from a loud amp, and occasionally you would have the fuzz on the floor, right? So there you go. And what do we have? Questions. All that post phase inverter master volume. I don't remember. My friend Matt Wells did it. Could be. I don't know. And I have a half power switch in the back. I am actually running at 50 watts right now as opposed to 100 because I blew a tube, which happens all the time. So, yes, low end gets fairly rumbly unless you roll down the bass, I think. Yeah, Marshalls are not at all like Fenders. Like any amp is different from any other amp. Like my 2 Rocks are very different. If you're used to a Fender, a lot of times you want to roll that bass down the louder you get, and sometimes with Marshalls you want to turn that bass up because they're passive tone controls, they're tone cuts as opposed to active. So once you use the older style Marshalls, like I like, you have to learn how to kind of mix the two channels to get the tone right. Just to give you an example, like here's just the bright channel. And now here's the bass channel. Right, so bass channel all the way up. More Clapton-y. Right, Yeah, God. That's really more like Cream, right? Right, that's much more creamish. So now if I do, a little more just the bright channel, A little more Van Halen. If I hit the over the overdrive. All right, so that's the bright channel. Very, like I said, Van Halen, That's a rough riff to play. Okay, and then what I end up doing is you blend the two a little bit. So, I'm going to turn down my treble channel. I'm going to put them both on noon. So check it out. Both on noon. So maybe a little more gain on the high end, on the high channel, bright channel. And then I'm going to turn down the bass channel. And if I turn the gain up all the way, I'm kind of frying the input of the aux, but okay. So, like something like Billy Gibbons, a little darker, you're like, right? Right, so a little more gain. So as I roll back my volume, so there it is. It's the sound of an old Marshall and how you'd kind of dial it in. Like I said, I could do a video on that. But so the page thing was much cleaner, so I'm going to just roll back both gains. So you think, like... And then you would roll back, get the clean sound. All from 1 amp. The only time Got the gain on the floor was when I just wanted to push it over the top. Clean up the guitar sound. And then I can go the little Peter Greeny thing I've got going on. And the same thing. And I got this rig all set up because my good friend Keith, who is online right now, I've got my gold horsey Klon on the floor, and just getting some of the sounds. Using the Klon on top, and here's the amp, right? So, and the Klon. And then you can get up the gain a bit, right? And you can tune the guitar. All right. Wow. Hoping strings go sharp. Obviously, the temperature, the weather. All right, so any questions? And I just nerded out there on gear, which I could do forever. All right. So that's how I'm running the amp. And that's how Page gets a lot of those guitar sounds. Using the volume knob. I mean, you hear those changes like on those. Then, can you play Sweet Home Alabama? Drop $50 in PayPal and I'll play it for you, buddy. All right. So there was those that we used to do a gig here in New York all the time called the 55 Bar here in Manhattan. When I was playing there, I had a steady gig every other Friday. And we had this great female singer. She was just a great rock star kind of singer. And people would ask for certain tunes, like Little Wing. And it's one of those songs I've played it so many times in my life that I'm just not a big fan of playing Little Wing, even though it's a fantastic song. I love it, but I just don't want to play it anymore. People call it out, and she would walk around and stand there with a tip jar and say, $20 and we'll play it. At some point somebody would just end up dropping the money in this thing. I'm like, okay, I'm just having fun with you, man. I'm just having, because those one of those kind of songs when people like yell Freebird at a gig, you're like, oh, come on. So that was just kind of reminded me of that whole thing where, where people would do that. So one thing, I'm just nerding out on the gear and all this kind of stuff today. I mean, one of the things about, somebody just mentioned the Comet amp here, and Holger's my friend, and those are spectacular amps. Sometimes when you're the old way of playing guitar, and I think, right, exactly. It was Keith in 5 Watt World, of course, we're talking to Holger and me. And he said that a lot more of the dirt isn't it's a whole lot louder, right? So what happens, okay, hold on, that was a poorly formed sentence. There's two thoughts I've got going on. Back in the day, or even right now, if I'm allowed, and Matt Schofield and I have talked about this at length, and I think we talked about it, and Robin, for sure, play really loud their amps are really loud, but they're not necessarily loud guitar players. It's the way the amp reacts when you're loud, and then you just play harder and softer. The amp becomes much more sensitive to the way you play, and then when you roll back your volume knobs or you pick harder and softer, the amp reacts and you have all this headroom. So I've had friends, and Matt and I have talked about this, that they've sat in at my gigs and they start playing, and I'm like, oh my God, like, because they don't play the same way I do in terms of, working the amp more. They're not familiar with my rig or something like that. And they're not that they're not good guitar players, they're just different players, and there's very personal the way these things are set up and all that, so that's interesting because I like to play loud so I could be more dynamic, right? And so sometimes when the amp goes, Keith, you're just saying, if I roll back, I'm not very gainy, hold on. All I'm doing is turning up the channel volume. So if I drive it back, like, it gets louder. And as I spoke about in the Les Paul video, in the video I did with Tim Pierce, if you want to check it out, excuse me, it gets lower in volume, but not dramatically. It gets cleaner. Right? So really, I could play a whole gig with no pedals. I like a tuner, right? Because just playing softer and harder, right? I turn down that volume. So it's all coming from the amp and your hands and practicing that. So practicing loud is kind of important. Not crazy loud where you're killing everyone, but it's a big part of the sound. It's a big part of all the classic guitar players I always talk about. And it doesn't have to be brutally loud. I mean, a 100-watt Marshall is just, you can't use it. It's just insane. I was talking to Rick Beato when he was talking about that Van Halen video he did with Rhett Shull. And he's like, oh my God, it was just so loud. I'm like, yeah. 100 watts, it's just insane. So a 20-watt amp turned up really loud. So it all depends on the wattage of the amp. So if you have a 20-watt amp and you crank it up, like that Marshall Origin, which for the money is it's just a great amp, but for the money, it's a really great amp, the Marshall Origin. And I did some videos over at 5 Watt World with Keith on the Beano tone. I was just using that. And we did that on purpose because the idea was Beano on a budget as opposed to just something like this, which is a very impractical amp. I'm happy I own it. I've owned it for 15 years more. So I'm happy I have it. But, 100-watt Marshall, well, now nobody's doing anything right now, but 100-watt Marshall is crazy. So, So the Origin is great. So whether you're using a Princeton or anything, for me, as long as it's a tube amp and as long as you can kind of turn it up and then you get your amp breaking up to a certain point, and you can clean it up. And that goes on to the 50s wiring and all this stuff I talked about in the other video, how they react. So if I want to step on something on the floor like a boost, So if I turn that off. All right. So, which course covers this song? It's my Blues Rock Grooves Essentials Volume Number 1. Okay. Any other questions? I was just kind of blabbing. Are there any good amp kits out there that give you Marshall sounds for less money? Yeah, sure, probably. But here's the trick. I mean, where do I get my hats? Gorin Brothers. All right, Gorin Brothers. You get them online. This is a Bailey's hat. Okay. Here's just some of my thought on some of these Marshalls in the kits. Right, kits, if you're going to build them, are really amazing. You can buy an old Marshall for the price of a new Marshall some of the times. Like if you buy a new Marshall 800, and I don't believe they're made in England, but they are the 80s Marshalls, or the late 70s, early 80s 800s, go for about the same price. And I'm always going to go for the old one, just because. Now, this one is a hand-wired one because it's before 73 to 72. So you can find these because, nobody can really use them because they're so loud. But you can find them for the same price or less, if you look, as a new one. And the new super leads are not hand-wired. A hand-wired is going to be like $4,000. And the old ones, might be, not that it's inexpensive, $2,000. I paid $800 for that years and years ago. I got lucky. And you can find ones that are just kind of been molested, but if you put them back to original spec, like they might have a hole in it that somebody drilled for a master volume or something like that. Who cares? If it sounds good, if it's an original old Marshall with the old transformers and sounds like that, I don't so much really care what it looks like as long as it sounds great. You're not buying it for resale value. This one was modded. There's no cosmetic mods, which is great. Like nobody drilled any holes. But in the inside, it had been modded to be like a high gain 2-channel thing. I just had it all taken out. I just put in a master volume. That's all. Okay. So everybody, thanks so much for hanging out. I really appreciate it. And I'll be back. Let me do my pitch one more time. Thanks to everybody who's hit the tip jar. I really appreciate it. Helps me keep on doing this, which I really love doing it. I love the community. If you like what you're seeing here and you're having fun, just please let other people know and subscribe and hit the bell. Come on, every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern. Just talking about stuff. I need to get better at announcing what I'm going to talk about first, but I sometimes just don't even think about what to talk about. I have all my TrueFire courses are 20% off at my website, and Phil has been pushing that, and I appreciate it. And thank you, Phil Mingan, of course, for being the great moderator and putting this all together. And I think that's it. Like I said, thanks for the tip jar. Appreciate it. And I will see you guys later. Oh, what speakers are in the cab? The real speakers? These are fake speakers. This is the aux. Usually with Marshalls, I use some kind of Celestion creamback or greenback sort of thing because I like that traditional sound. Or a G12H. I also like the G1265s as well. So the three classic speakers that most guitar players like. I'm not a big vintage 30 guy. They're a little more heavy sounding. So I like creambacks, so the 25 watts or the 30 watts, the G12Hs, or the G1265s, which is like the Dumble speaker. It's a great sounding speaker, works great with Marshalls. And that's what these cabinets are. But just finally one thing. These speakers are 65 watt and they handle more than that. They're like 85 watts. So the speaker rating makes the amp louder. So my Marshall sounds much louder through my 2-rock cabinet than it does through my other THD cabinet, which has creambacks in it, which emulate a 25 watt speaker. So the speakers will attenuate the sound as well. Not that much, I mean, but on a gig you'll hear a difference. So right now this is all fake amp. So, all right, so next, I know what I'm going to talk about next week. I think this is next, if all goes well, we're going to talk a little bit about the Klon, because Keith is going to be putting out a video on the history of the Klon, and I will be using my Gold Horsey. I will be using my KTR as well. We can hear the difference between the two. And like I said, the Gold Horsey that I've had, like the one thing I was smart enough to hang on to. Oh, and the Super Lead. I was smart enough to hang on to that as well. All right, everyone. Love you guys. Thank you so much for hanging, and I will see you next week.